If you are trying to become a great writer and be on bookshelves across the world, should you be drinking coffee? Well, today we are going to hear from some of the best authors in the world on the pros and cons of stimulants. And let's be honest here, you guys. There is a massive cult surrounding coffee. We live in a stimulant nation. We do not live in a conscious and slow nation. So many people, before they even watch this video, are just going to disregard this as some dare program BS and continue on unconsciously. But for those who are willing to go on this journey with me, I would really like to talk about this because 5 years ago in 2020, I cold turkey quit caffeine. And for 5 years, I have not had any chocolate, any decaf coffee, or any form of caffeine. And my energy and productivity went through the roof. And I will never again go back to drinking caffeine or engaging with any stimulants. But that may be a little extreme. And speaking of extreme people in coffee, this is Balzac. Oops, I mean Balzac. And Balzac is one of the more prolific authors of all time in terms of output. And our first quote about coffee, of course, has to come from him. Quote, "This coffee falls into your stomach, and straight away there is a general commotion. Ideas begin to move like the battalions of the grand army on the battle." And Balzac was known for drinking up to 50 cups of coffee a day. And over the course of his 25 years of writing before he died at 51, maybe from drinking so much coffee, he published 85 novels and he had some other books. 85 novels, everyone. It is a miracle if any of the goats behind me get 20 novels out in their career. Most novelists fall anywhere in the, 10 to 15 novels category. Homeboy right here even looks like he smells of burnt coffee. His hands look like he's just been digging it in the coffee grounds. And this brings up an awesome point on routine versus obsession because there are many of you guys out there who drink coffee as a form of your morning routine. And I would say that this is a pretty positive thing to do if you can handle it, because I recommend that everyone in the morning before they write do a spiritual practice or a practice to rev them up. Whether that is meditation, journaling, or doing something like the morning pages. I write for the trash. I have a video about that over on my Substack. Or doing something like making coffee and drinking it. All those things take, maybe up to 20 minutes and can help you get into your writing with a little bit more energy. Because something that I've struggled with is that I have a set amount of time to write every single morning because I am a teacher. And so sometimes I wake up and I have a kid and maybe I'm feeling groggy because it was a crazy night. And I get to the page and I'm starting to write a scene that I left off yesterday on that had so much passion and tenacity. And I can't match that energy. But if I do a form of one of the practices I was talking about, it's much easier to kind of slip into the emotional state of writing. And people like Stephen King, Murakami, and countless others do something like this. They're not, drinking excessive amounts of caffeine every day like Balzac or David Lynch or whoever. They are rather just integrating it into a system, which I think is really important. One of the dumbest things that writers do is have a morning routine. Your morning routine should be doing one thing that preps you for writing, then you should start writing. Back in November, I talked to a bunch of people for free when I launched my writing school, and I was just talking to people for 20 minutes about whatever. And there was this one guy who was telling me how he wants to be a writer and he has all this time and he's basically a trust fund kid. I was like, okay, how much are you writing a day? And he's like, an hour. I was like, an hour? Well, what do you do in the morning? He's like, well, I do my red light therapy and my sauna and my cold plunge and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you've been doing this for years and you're telling everyone you're a writer and you don't even have a free post out on Substack yet. And so he drank coffee in the morning while doing all that. And I just want to reiterate something that I once heard, that coffee is really, really good at making you do things that don't matter really well. And that if you are going to be engaging with stimulants, it's obviously pulling into your energy reserves, and you better use that time that you are on stimulants for something productive. And I would recommend, locking yourself in a room with no distractions and nothing to do except write. because back when I was just consuming a massive amount of caffeine, if I didn't do that, I would find I'd be reorganizing things, I'd be looking at things, I'd be changing the song. So when coffee is done this way or stimulants is done with in this way, I think it's much healthier and better for us as writers than the other way, which Jonathan Franzen's about to talk about here. Quote, I think novelists today are just the kind of people who drink way too much coffee. You sit there, you obsess, and you overinterpret everything. And this is 100% true. If you are planning to become the next literary fiction GOAT, then you are going to have to put an ungodly amount of time in, because 99% of the books behind me, their authors spent 3 to 10,000 hours revising them. And that's not including the first draft and however long it took them to write that. Then it got sent off to a great editor at one of the top publishing houses in the world. And those authors most likely had written decades before even writing that. And so we have big shoes to fill if we are trying to reach the pinnacle of the writing world. And one of the ways to kind of force that hand is just pure obsession. I'm currently on Substack.com, where the literary renaissance is happening. The best writers and the best readers in the world are all on Substack.com. And the reason I'm mentioning that is that back in October, I started helping people for free get on Substack and get people to start reading their work. And down in the link below, I released this like free 3-hour course on how to grow your Substack and get readers, yada, yada, yada. And so one of the people who took that course has all the time in the world, is living with his parents. And I think is 28, 29 years old, very talented writer. And he puts 16 hours a day in on Substack. I will like reply to something and he's like responding in 30 seconds all of the time. He's writing every single day, just releasing crazy amounts of stuff. He is 100% obsessed. He drinks coffee and takes stimulants and chews tobacco all day long. He has achieved a ton of success for just being in the game for 6 months. He has thousands of readers now, but I feel like obsession is something that we are going to have to leave behind if we are going to create a literary renaissance, because this channel is titled Write Conscious. And the thing that we are lacking to create a literary renaissance, to create a golden age in literature, where people in every single household are engaging with transformative art of any medium and changing their lives and becoming more conscious and nonviolent individuals. The choke point for that, in terms of the people creating that movement, creating the art that's going to fuel that, is not obsession. Many of us are obsessed. Many of us want it. Many of us know how to sacrifice. So it's not more hard work. The choke point is actually clarity. Because if you talk to most writers, their vision, their direction is obfuscated. They are existing in this murky wasteland with not just what they are writing about, but also their direction and their plan. It's an absolute mess, who they are as individuals. And this is because their work, their consciousness, their relationship to others in the world and with reality itself is not reciprocal. It is a one-way dominating train of consciousness that is fueled by obsession, fueled by the pull toward acquisition and climbing the ladder. And so I am here as an advocate for you to get off that path. Because let's say you do that. Let's say you obsess and you write something, but it's totally outside of yourself and you use logic and brute force to get it done, and it's a big deal. Then that's awesome, and like that, and it's so good that you did that. But there are so many people who try that every single year and fail, just fall flat on their face. Like 99.999% of writers do that because they think that that's the modality they need to pursue this in. And so another word for enhancing your vision is aligning yourself with something outside of yourself. Whether that's the I, the transcendent self within, if you are an atheist, or if it's a transcendent ideal of art that you are striving for, or trying to connect to a divine transcendent entity or the creative ether that's going to pull you up. And I know from being a yoga teacher for over 13 years now that caffeine does not bode well with obtaining mystical states and flow states, because there is a difference between pounding off some work because you have a ton of energy and you're in the flow and actually intuiting something beautiful. Because with obsession, with logic, you can get into this flow. You can get into this system where you can create beautiful sentences, a beautiful story. But I want to ask you a question right now. Would you rather have this hard charging, beautiful novel that you had to force, that you had to make into that? Or would you rather have a beautiful novel that came from the muses, that came from within, that came in a magical way? Which one would you rather have? And I don't know where our priorities are at as a collective, but I would like to have that novel that came from that magical place. And I know that that's what we need in mass to actually change the publishing world. The literary renaissance is 50,000 authors who believe in their work and who are creating that type of magic. Because if we have 50,000 people, they will speak to every single corner of the English speaking world. But if we have 50,000 authors who are hard charging and all trying to be the next Cormac McCarthy or the next whoever, and just trying to be stylistic monsters or just genre people trying to make money, we're not going to get anywhere. There's going to be so many people and so much money left on the table. And so now I want to return to this idea of caffeine and creativity, because I think people mix up that getting writing done is being creative, because it's easy to be creative. I'm a high school teacher. My kids can make up stories all day. The easiest part of being a writer is just figuring out what's going on. Like you could sit down and get any fucking person on the street to literally write a movie or like get the plot of a book down. It's not hard to plot it out. You can look up some easy videos on plot structure and all that. That's the easiest part of writing. But because it's the easiest and because it's the flashy part, many people think that it's the entire thing. But writing is about, especially fiction writing, about communicating a message that everybody already knows from such a unique way that they actually receive it again. They actually respect you. Respect means to again, inspectare, to look again. So you're making them respect this angle that you are taking, because we are living in this culture now where there is National Novel Writing Month, where there are the MIC-MFA factories, where there are, every single opportunity in the genre world with Bigfoot erotica to make a bunch of money. And in this world, ideas are paramount. And, the goal is to just flow through these things and get it done. And this connects very handedly to the David Goggins hustle culture, the masculine drive of testosterone. And when you look at all those guys, they all promote stimulant use. But when you put that together for most people, this supremacy of the idea and just getting it done, what you get is lazy and weak writing. There are so many authors who think that they are obsessing, but they're actually just grinding through the work and not actually taking time to become the work, to be the work, literally, to embody that energy. Sometimes that requires years of silence and solitude or research to make it happen. These authors behind me barely had distractions. They didn't have the numbing technological devices, except the classical ones, sex, alcohol, tobacco, whatever, daydreaming. We have a million. And so I think that it's sad that we are in this state, because I think that technology and stimulants cloud the unconscious process. Because as you're going throughout the day, your unconscious should be processing your story, processing the next levels of growth. When you're waiting in line or hanging out, instead of being stimulated, whether with your phone or with a stimulant, or when you're relaxing or doing something else, your unconscious should be working on your writing, should be working for your next big quantum leap as a human. And our job as artists, one of the hardest things to do as an artist is when you get an idea, when you get this intuition of this thing that you want to do, you have to figure out if it's the right type of idea and if you should pursue it. And Allen Ginsberg said that I stopped drinking coffee and it was the most Buddhist thing I ever did. Everything slowed down. The desire for artificial momentum vanished. And the future of writing is moving away from artificial momentum and moving into silence and stillness and even sobriety. Reaching ecstatic states and exploring the underworld is a thing that should be done in moderation. When you look at many of the best authors, they were doing it in moderation. And when they did, it was a big deal. And that's when they would do this work. then the rest of the time they were living in a very sattvic and neutral state. And if you are trying to prolong your career and your life into your 80s and 90s or even the 100s, then one of the best things that you can do is get away from things that help you lose focus on enhancing clarity. Because I also want you to remember what you have to do and what you have to step into to be a writer in 2025. And that is solving whatever inner issues you have that prevent you from speaking about your work. And I know personally that marijuana, psychedelics, caffeine, tobacco, I mean I could go on. I don't want to though. Prevent me from actually doing better in my social life, in my emotional life, and with my physical fitness and many other things. And occasionally they are fine. Occasionally it's cool to get baked and go to a concert or go skiing or just hang out and have a fun time with friends or do some of that, do something like that. But I think the problem is that we are a new being. We've stepped into a new era in writing where our what makes us different, what makes me different from AI and you is your spectrum of awareness, your spectrum of perception. And whatever gets in the way of that needs to go, especially something permanent. And caffeine, most of the time in writers' lives and in just the average person's life, is a mechanism to tap into energy reserves because bad decisions have been made. You know, many of you guys drink caffeine because you either grew up with it culturally and you were probably programmed to get yourself way too deep into some bullshit that you weren't ready for. You know, everyone I know who drinks caffeine is on the daily job grind and has kids and all of this stuff, and it's just become this thing that they need. And if you are going to be a successful author moving forward, then the first thing that you need to do is to stop making decisions that are going to make it harder for you to be an author. Don't take on more at work. Don't get a new dog. Don't have another kid, like at least for a second. Like you got to slow down. Or if you are going to do that, then you need to manage and replace other things in your life. And so many of us are overworked. Many of us are drinking caffeine for capitalism, not for our art. And I know that when I got off caffeine, I was my brain was dead for weeks. I wasn't able to tap into this new energy reserve because my cortisol and many other things had to recover. And so I want to ask you a question. Would you rather have a stimulating life because of stimulants or because of stimulating goals? I get usually 3 videos out on here a day, posts out on my Substack. I'm trying to get back into the daily writing over on Substack again. And that's because I have those goals. It's because I'm connected to these larger projects, and that's what pulls me forward. That's the centerpiece of my life. Same with my family. I want to be as sober as possible and not be off in la la land. And so let me speak to you guys now. What are your thoughts on coffee? What are you doing? How much caffeine are you taking a day? I would also recommend something that changed my life is switching from coffee to green tea, to yerba mate, and even taking caffeine pills. You know, something I learned was that if you take 100 milligrams of caffeine in the form of coffee, it is nothing compared to if you take a caffeine pill that has 100 milligrams in it with some L-theanine in it. Even if the caffeine's sourced from coffee, you get double the energy and there's less of a crash. And so my caffeine tips are take caffeine pills or switch off of coffee. And you guys can look it up, but coffee is actually really bad for a lot of people in terms of how it's processed. It's a very weak drugs in terms of like I said, how people process it. And you would be wise to switch something else if you're trying to get good results. None of it tastes as good as coffee, unfortunately. I do miss that. I was a huge connoisseur of coffee and going to coffee shops and hanging out with people and doing that whole thing. But I could still do that. Go have an herbal tea. There's also Swiss waterpress decaf, which gets rid of all the decaf. There are 2 different types of decaf. There is the toxic kind where they use chemicals to make it decaffeinated, and it still retains a decent amount of caffeine, like over 5%. So you actually get a hit. But then there's Swiss waterpress that gets 99.9% of the caffeine out, and that is much better because it took me years to quit caffeine. When I finally quit in 2020, I had been trying since 2014 to quit. So I had quit many times and, was using alternatives. But I kind of found that when I used alternatives, eventually it led me most of the time to wanting to dive back into it. But anyway, that's the word. Choose your drugs wisely is also, if you have to have it every single day, then it is hurting you more than you know. Each and every one of you listening to this right now is a part of the literary renaissance. I believe in you. I am here for you, and I'll see every single one of you guys in the next video.